How difficult is French? So, I believe this will be the third video in this kind of series where I'm going to go through languages, talk about them a bit, talk about how easy or difficult they are, just so as a beginner you can kind of know what you're getting into. And obviously the explanation is very important because everyone's different, and if I can kind of tell you a little bit about the language, you'll know what you're looking for and whether or not it's something you want to learn. So yeah, French is a beautiful language, but how difficult, that is the question. Just a little bit about it to start off. So it's the 5th most spoken language in the world after English, Mandarin, Hindi and Spanish. So French is the 5th after those. That's including both native and non-native speakers. And it has over 280 million speakers, so it's just ahead of Arabic. It's also one of the most popular and well-known languages. There's no one who doesn't know what French is. Basically, everyone can recognize it when they hear it, and it is known for its romantic sound. It's known as the language of love, it is actually a romance language. So that's kind of, I guess, part of that. But yeah. It also, as I just said, it's a Romance language, so it has a lot in common with other Romance languages, so the most spoken of which are Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and Romanian, as well as French are the 5 most spoken. There's obviously tons of others that don't exist anymore. There's also tons of others that do still exist, like Neapolitan. There's a bunch of them. I'm not going to go through and name them all. But yeah, you can look it up if you want. French also has many lexical similarities with English. I believe it's something like 25 to 29%, which means they have a lot of words that are kind of similar. Obviously, that's a good thing. The more words that are similar, the easier it's going to be. And as you probably already know, plenty of words in English come from French. So parliament comes from the French word for speaking place. Government, army, cafe comes from the French word for coffee. There's also rendezvous is obviously French. A lot of words, you can kind of guess if they're French just from the way they sound. So yeah, there's a lot of words from the French language. But yeah, that gives English and French many cognates. So if you don't know what a cognate is, it's basically a word that's either the same or very similar. So obviously, parliament, if you imagine that, if it's spelt with like an E instead of the IA in the middle, it's basically spelt the same way. So you can kind of read that, and you don't even need to look it up. That's how I remember cognates. You don't need to look up the word even if you've never heard of it before, because you can just see and understand what it is, which is obviously also a benefit if you're learning a language. It's going to make it easier. French is also spoken officially or nationally in 29 countries and 11 overseas territories. I believe an overseas territory is just a place that's not a country of its own, but it has some kind of self-governing thing. So like, what's it called? New Caledonia, I think, would be an overseas territory. I know Greenland is, but they don't speak French. That's just a random example, because I just did a video on, what did I do a video? I was researching Greenland. That's right, languages of North America, because I had to research Greenland. I completely forgot why that was in my mind, sorry. But anyway, moving on. So French is also a colonial language, so it is not only spoken in France or even in just Europe, because there's other countries in Europe like Belgium, Switzerland, Luxembourg. There's plenty of places in Europe that speak French, Andorra as well, I think. It's spoken in North America, Africa, Oceania, all over the place because of colonization. So, how difficult is it? French is generally considered to be an easy language. It's not the easiest language. There's easier languages like Spanish, Dutch, Afrikaans. I think Italian, in my opinion, is a bit easier, but that one is debatable. I think Italian's easier. But yeah, overall, French is not that difficult. Learners are generally able to learn it within a matter of months, like a high amount of months, so like 9, 10. Between that and 2 years, if you're decently consistent. And obviously military linguists who are experts, or just other polyglots who are really good and for whatever reason haven't learned French, because that's probably one of the first few most people learn. I know it's the first Ollie Richards learn. Those kind of people can generally learn it in weeks, so something like 20, 30 weeks, because it's not that difficult. If they're experts though, don't go into it expecting to learn it that quickly. But yeah, it is an easy language to learn. It's a Romance language, as I said, so it's not surprising that it isn't too difficult, because Romance languages are generally easy, with Romanian kind of being a kind of exception. It's still not too difficult, but it's harder. But yeah, that doesn't really matter. Yeah, French is famous for its romantic sound, although the pronunciation of French words that gives it this can make it a little bit difficult for a few reasons. One, it's just you make some sounds you don't fully make, and the accent is it is different from English, so that is a bit of a change compared to something like Spanish or Italian, where it kind of comes naturally. Second reason is there's a lack of standardization between varieties, so I wouldn't say they're dialects, but there's different accents for French. As someone who's been to like Vanuatu, New Caledonia, they speak French there, and it's spoken a bit differently to French in France it is, and then there's obviously Belgian French, French in Luxembourg, all these different countries. Maybe even within France itself, there's different varieties. I'm not 100% sure on that. And then there's obviously Canadian French, like spoken in Quebec, I think it is. So yeah, there's different ways French words are pronounced, and then some people like to say that their way is it's their way or the highway, which isn't true. There's just different ways to say stuff, so that kind of thing can make it more difficult. Be glad you're not learning Arabic, because it's even worse with that. But yeah, and third reason, what was I going to say? Orthography. So basically, there's a thing called orthographic depth. This is actually kind of interesting to know, and it's not too hard to understand. Orthographic depth is basically how easy it is to pronounce the word based on reading it. So you take a language like Spanish, where you can basically read the word and you say it exactly how it's written. There's no tricks. Whereas in English, like if you say a word like pronunciation, it should be pronunciation if you say it exactly how it's spelled. But obviously we have certain things, certain sounds change, and exceptions and all that stuff. French has that as well, so it's considered orthographically deep. The shallower the orthography is, the easier it is to discern. So French is quite deep, along with English. So you've already done a language that's pretty hard in that. But yeah, just thought I'd point that out. It also uses a few accent marks. There's the what's it called? Cedille, I think. I'm not sure. Sorry. You've got the that's the acute accent, the first one on the left. The one that looks almost the same on top of the A is the grave accent. And then you've got the circumflex here and the umlaut. So just a few different accent marks can change things a little bit here and there. Overall, they're not too difficult. You'll get used to them. French just uses the English alphabet, which you probably already knew, but that's obviously good, so you don't have to learn an alphabet. That's always a big tick for making it easier. And it is overall not much harder than slightly simpler languages like Italian. It has easy enough grammar, and obviously there's some exceptions here and there, probably more so with French than other Romance languages, but overall, it's not that difficult. So yeah, should you learn French? Yeah, I think you should. Overall, I am going to learn French after I learn Russian right now. It's a very desirable language to know. It's pretty cool. Everyone likes it, and it's obviously flex. It's not going to weird anyone out if that is the thing with languages. But yeah, I think you should learn French, especially if you're a beginner. French is an excellent language to start with. So it's very culturally significant. There's tons of French fiction, movies, books, and general media in French. There's books like The Count of Monte Cristo. I think it's Les Miserables a play? I think that maybe it started off as a book. I don't know, sorry. All I know is there's tons of stuff in French. It's very culturally significant. It's impacted all other languages, just like you saw with English. It shares a 29% vocabulary with French, kind of. It's hard to explain. 29% lexical similarity. And everyone can recognize French when they hear it. It's famous. It's one of the most famous languages in the world. So knowing French will make travel much more fun, especially, like, it doesn't take long to learn, so there's no reason not to learn it. And yeah, knowing a language full stop is good. Knowing French is even better. It's just a cool language to know. There's a reason why almost every polyglot, you won't find like a language expert who doesn't speak French. Like, try and find someone. I dare you. Comment them down below. You probably will find someone because you've got the internet at your disposal. But you won't find someone in like 1 minute. Like, it'll take you a bit to go through and find someone. But yeah, it is extremely fun to learn. There's a high reward to input ratio. So based on how much effort you put in, it's really fun compared to. Man, I'm going to have to trash a language here. I don't know, Vietnamese probably wouldn't be that fun for how much time and effort you put into it. But I hope no one's watching this and is Vietnamese. I just had to think of a language I think I'm not really that interested in learning. But yeah, I think French is fun to learn. There's a high reward to input ratio. And yeah, it sounds beautiful. It's a flex. I've already talked about it. It's a flex. I don't think you realize how like good a flex is. Like today, random story today, right? I had learnt the alphabet backwards ages ago, like literally in like 2014, 10 years ago, when I was young. And then someone randomly today just said, give you $20 if you can say the alphabet backwards, and instantly, like literally in 1 second, I just said the whole alphabet backwards. So he's going to give me $20 tomorrow. That's pretty good. So the point of that story is that things just come in useful. If something as dumb as learning the alphabet backwards made me $20 10 years later, and it didn't even take that long to learn. It probably took like 15 minutes to learn the alphabet backwards. I just went backwards along it because my brothers had learnt it and I hadn't. Like, that's a dumb story. My point is, things will be useful. If that's something that small can be useful, learning French will be useful. What if the person that like you fall in love with one day speaks French? That could be the difference between you getting that person and not. You know what? We're going to move on from that. It's going to get too weird because I'm going to think of an example, then I'm going to dig myself a big hole. So yeah, I think you should learn French. you'd be surprised how important things can be and how they can come in useful. That's the point of that story. For anyone who gives a crap about my life, he's paying me in 5-cent pieces tomorrow, so that's going to be fun. I hope he actually does go through with that. But yeah, I won $20. That was pretty cool. Anyway, French is extremely significant regarding food and cuisine. So a few interesting facts. If you heard of champagne, that is sparkling wine, I believe, from the Champagne region in France. If it's not from there, it has to be called. It's not really champagne. It's just sparkling wine. Obviously, there's other sparkling wine like Prosecco from Italy. There's one from Spain. But yeah, there's a lot of food names that are directly French, which makes a knowledge of French useful for cooking and food alike. So you take someone. I don't know if Gordon Ramsay speaks French. Just any chef that doesn't speak French, they're gonna have some knowledge of French based on cooking. So that obviously applies to that. French is also the only language other than English to be spoken on every continent. I don't know why when I look this up it says spoken on all 5 continents. I'm not sure to which 5 continents they're referring, or if they even went to school and did geography, because I'm pretty sure there's 7, and if you take Antarctica out, there's 6. So I don't really know what they're talking about, but it is spoken everywhere. It's spoken in islands in Oceania, it's spoken in Africa, it's spoken in North America, it's spoken in Europe. The only places I don't know where exactly it's spoken is Asia and South America, but it has to be spoken in at least one of them mathematically, unless every person who said that is completely wrong, which I doubt. So yeah, it's spoken everywhere. Even though it is not one of the most spoken languages, it's still spoken everywhere, so it's spread out, which I think is interesting, obviously due to colonialism partly, but that is interesting. And many French cognates are actually not cognates, they're false friends. So a false friend is a word that appears like a cognate, like librairie down there, which is the French word for bookshop, not library. And pain, that's probably less of a cognate because it's a common word. It means, I don't know how to pronounce French words 100% properly, sorry. It means bread. Kind of like pane in Italian, which I can pronounce properly because I speak Italian. And yeah, so they're false friends. So there are a lot of words that seem like cognates, but they're actually not what they sound like. That's not really a big deal though. It's more of an interesting fact than a thing that's going to make the language harder. But something I will say is a lot of the cognates in French are also cognates in Italian, probably Spanish as well. So I know some of them definitely are in Spanish from the basics I know. But yeah, so if you know one Romance language, the things that are similar words and then false friends are generally the same. So words that you'll find that don't mean what they sound like in French, that same word, like take library for a second, that word libreria in Italian doesn't mean library, it means bookstore. So it's literally the same. And I know the word in Italian that actually means library is biblioteca. So I don't know what the French word for actual library is, but potentially if it's the same, then that's proving me right. If it's not, I'm still right, I promise. But yeah, having a knowledge of that will help you with other Romance languages. Finally, French counting. This, if you don't know about it, will blow your mind. I would actually recommend you look up French counting WTF afterwards. Basically, once you get to, I think either 60 or 70, you can't just say 70. You have to say, once you get past 60, I think it is, you can't say like 70. You have to say 60 10, or like 60 and 10, obviously in French, to say 70, and then that keeps going. So for 80 you say 420s, for 90 you say like 420s and 110, and for 99 you say, I can't even say probably I'm not going to try and pronounce French, but you say like 420s, a 10 and a 9. So that doesn't really make sense. If you look it up and read it and someone actually has the digits with like addition signs, it'll make sense. But yeah, they count by adding numbers together weirdly. They don't have like we just say 99. We don't say 4 times 20 plus 10 plus 9 to get 99. They do. It's weird. But yeah, it's pretty easy to understand if you actually looked at a picture of the digits. I just don't have space in this PowerPoint. But yeah, basically. Yeah, overall, French is a beautiful and romantic language that is famous around the world. Learning it is an amazing flex, and it's definitely worth the small time investment it demands. I say small, it's obviously going to take a year or so, but yeah, it is definitely worth it. If you're looking to learn a language as well, I'll just say I am working on my website at the moment. It's called Head of State Language Learning. It's completely free. There's no sign up, and I have a link in the description. It has every language you could want to learn. It's completely free, as I said, so you can click on the language you want to learn, find it, and it's got resources for learning it, so you can go through, learn. If you're just starting off, you can go through, click each link in order, and just literally learn the language, because it'll take you to explanations for each thing. It'll get slowly harder, and after you've learned the language. It's got everything you'll need. It's currently under maintenance, so you can't completely use it, but you can have a look around on the homepage and look at the art I have going, and give me any requests or criticisms or anything like that. I'm a beginner to designing websites, so go easy on me. But yeah, I'm doing it for you guys completely free out of my own time because I want you to learn. So yeah, thank you for listening and I hope you enjoyed.